So welcome to our webinar on empowering your coaching with multiple natures. I'm Steven Rudolph, founder of Multiple Natures International, and I'm speaking to you from Phoenix, Arizona, where it is very sunny. One of the few spots right now in the States that's sunny. So I send out lots of sunshine to everybody who's watching and following us and our webinar today. With me, I would like to introduce my co-host, Christine Clifton, who is in Southport, North Carolina right now, who will be assisting. And Christine is the first certified MN practitioner in the United States. So she is an excellent person to have on the panel today. And we'll hear from her a little further down the line about her experience as a practitioner and activities with that. So without further ado, I would like to get started. So here's an overview of what we're going to be talking about in the webinar today. So I'm going to tell you what the webinar is about. Second, I'll give a personal introduction so you understand a little bit about me, where I'm from, how I came to developing multiple natures. We'll get into MN itself. I'll talk a little bit about the concept and some of the tools that we've developed. We'll then move into how MN can empower your coaching. So if you are somebody who's working with professionals, with students, life balance, anything in the coaching area, you'll find that MN has vast implications, and we'll see what those are. Next will be if you want to step ahead and move forward and actually use MN in your practice, you can find out how to become a certified MN practitioner. I'm going to tell you all the details about that. And there'll be a special offer, which I leave toward the end to keep your interest. Although these days people can fast forward and cut to the chasing, but I'm sure you're going to enjoy the entire ride. We'll get to that special offer. And then finally, an opportunity for some question and answers. Okay, so let's start. What's the webinar about? So this presentation, if you take a look at the pictures that are here, this is sort of like a little test for you to try to see if you can find if I have one word or commonality among these pictures, what is it? I've got a tire, we have some spine, some people rowing a boat there. And the answer is alignment. So we know that when our tire is aligned, our car drives better. We know that if you talk to any chiropractor, he'll tell you that when your spine is aligned, you're going to be more effective at everything you do. You'll be healthier. When we take a look at nature, we see animals, birds, when they fly in flock and formation, that when they're in alignment, their aerodynamics shoots way up, and it makes it efficient for them to fly. And the same thing with people in any sort of teamwork. When people work together, when our focus, when our vision, when our actions are aligned, we get out of that activity so much more. So if I had to boil everything down to a single term, it would be alignment. And if I were to again represent it visually or graphically, if we look at on the left side, these as each one of those little shapes as a trait or a human personality trait inside of us, we can see what happens when they're organized and aligned in the right way. And if you take, that happens to be the Multiple Natures logo. And if you look at the logo on the right, you'll see that when they're in formation, in the center, in the negative space, you'll see a sun shining. And I think that really expresses the Multiple Natures ethos, which is when you get your qualities in alignment, you don't have to do anything more. You naturally shine, your energy naturally emerges, and that's what we're trying to do. Our mission below says we're trying to help people understand themselves so they can become aligned with their true natures. And we're going to find out specifically what natures are in just a bit. So as a life coach or therapist or somebody who works in guidance with others, there are many tools that are available to you. Many people say, like, I have this tool in my tool chest or toolkit. In fact, there might even be too many, because when people come to you and they have a particular problem and you're there to facilitate in the process, you provide tools to them. Now, they're already handling so many of the problems that they're going through right now in addition to having learned new tools and then apply them, if we give tools to them that are too complicated, too difficult, it just winds up extinguishing the fire. It makes their problems actually worse. So we need tools that are easy to use, that are flexible, that are powerful, and that are fun. And in that sense, multiple natures, I think, is very much like a Swiss Army knife. It does lots of things. It's very compact, it's flexible, easy to use, fun, great to have handy. You'll find yourself using it all the time whenever the situation arises. And so we'll look specifically at what those blades are and how they work in terms of the multiple natures analogy. So a little bit about me, so you know where I'm from and how multiple natures came about. I'm originally from Wayne, New Jersey, grew up in the suburbs, and not unlike most teens, I had wild aspirations of doing something very unique and interesting in life. And for me, that was music. This is me when I guess around 17, 18 or so. And I had this dream of being a rock star. And maybe not totally unfounded, my musical ability was always strong ever since the early ages, and I've always had an entertaining tendency. So there was a chance I was going to go down that route. And after graduating from college, I moved to the Big Apple, to New York City, to try to find my fame and fortune as a rock star. And I found out very quickly that aspiring rock stars don't make a lot of money, so I had to go get a job. And I got a part-time job as a teacher, which became a full-time job. And I fell madly in love with teaching. I had an epiphany. You know, you hear the voice from the sky that says, okay, you know, you're not a rock star, you're a teacher. And then all my hair turned white. So now you know. I asked myself, you know, I love teaching so much. Why did I never know this? I went through 20 some odd years of schooling and I never found this out about myself. And I said that, you know, education should really be about kids finding out who they are. And it was one of those youthful vows to change the system. I'm going to create an education system where every child is going to know who he is. All right, well, I had to start someplace. And I thought, all right, let me make my own school. Of course, I was 22, 23 years old, wildly idealistic. And I thought, open it in New York City. And a friend of mine who was from India said, listen, don't open it in New York. Come to India with me. We're going to do a project and we can do something, we can open up a school. And it just sounded like a fascinating opportunity. And so I did it. And so in 1994, I moved to India. After a few years, I had been traveling there for reconnaissance, just to understand what was going on. But I moved to India in 94, and vastly different than the world that I had been in New York. And the activities of India were largely about getting the school started. And so I moved there and we set up the Jiva Public School, which is based in Faridabad. And we started the school in the house. So on the first day, we had about 8 kids in our house. And it grew to 2,000 children, not in the house, obviously, but it grew to about 2,000 children. And today, it's not the number that I'm obsessed with, but what's more interesting is the fact that every child knows who he is. Every child in the school, the core of the curriculum is about self-awareness and knowing who you are. And so you can, okay, so I just got a message. Right. So the core of the curriculum is based on multiple natures, multiple intelligences to help the children find out who they are. And let's get into finding out about how that happens. So multiple intelligence is a tool that I caught on very quickly, and I liked it very much as a tool to help my teachers and the students and the parents understand the children's natures. And here, if you're familiar with the multiple intelligences framework made by Howard Gardner in 1983, Gardner said that a traditional concept of IQ is absolutely off, and that we need to be thinking about many ways of being smart, what you call multiple intelligences. So you could be smart with your body, you could be smart with people, interpersonal, you could be smart with numbers, with logic, with language, with visual things, with music, with self-analysis, even with animals, plants, and nature. So he called these multiple intelligences. And educators around the world have found a lot of favor with multiple intelligences because it helps them to identify the uniqueness of children. And of course, as time goes on and children get tempered and the system beats them down quite a bit, teachers have steered away from this. But there's a lot to be said about understanding people from their roots before they really get, quote unquote, conditioned. And multiple intelligences was a tool that I grasped onto. But at the same time, it wasn't enough. There was something that was missing. And I asked myself, is there another set of qualities, or are there any other qualities that I can add on to? And for that, I did a deep dive. So I was in India for 20 years. And while I was there, I really got deeply into it. Just one second. Okay, so Wes is here. Welcome, Wes. Okay. I got really deeply into the content of Indian philosophy to understand what people's abilities were all about. And one of the things that I found while interacting with a colleague of mine who's a Sanskrit scholar is that there's this concept of what's called swasthya. And swasthya basically, it's a word made of two parts. It's a Sanskrit word. And swa means self, sthya means situated in. So together, it would be to be situated in oneself or to be aligned with oneself. Now, what really struck me when I encountered this word was the literal translation of swasthya is health or healthy. It blew me away because what it says is that if you're aligned with yourself, you're automatically healthy. And I noticed this in people as I started to look around, that I would find that there were some people who were really passionate, who were really into what they were doing. And when I saw that alignment, I could see that they were full of life and health. And from here, I took it further to understand, what does that alignment mean? How can we understand what the qualities are if somebody is aligned? And from the Indian literature, I sort of culled out or mined out these particular qualities, which I call multiple natures. In Sanskrit, the word would be swabhav, which means one's self-nature, essentially. And those are protective nature, so a tendency to protect or prevent harm, loss, or injury. An educative nature, a tendency to explain or teach. An administrative nature, which is a tendency to get work done. A healing nature, which is a tendency to help others out of imbalance. Creative nature, which is a tendency to ideate or create new things, to innovate. An entertaining nature, which is a tendency to attract attention and to amuse others. A providing nature, which is a tendency to help people to feed their needs or to serve others. The next is an entrepreneurial nature, which is a tendency to create value. So it could be with companies or with products or organizations. And the last is an adventurous nature, which is a tendency to do risky things or explore the unknown. So if we take a look at this set of qualities, and what I did was I paired it together with multiple intelligences. And as soon as I did this, I started to see the fireworks. So for example, if somebody is strong with bodily intelligence and they've got a strong, let's say, protective nature, then they would be inclined toward becoming a police officer or a military or a bodyguard. But if their bodily was strong on the left side, and let's just say that their healing nature was strong, they would have a tendency to help people out of pain, but using their body. So those could be physical therapists, they might be massage therapists, Reiki professionals, and so on. And again, you can keep seeing the permutations here. If I keep that healing as a quality, but someone has a strong, let's say, interpersonal intelligence, right? This ability of working with people. So healing people, interactive, there's where your psychologists, psychiatrists, therapists, coaches also come in, having those qualities. And like this, you can go through literally quadrillions, I've done a calculation, quadrillions of possibilities. And that helps us really understand how unique people really are. We say that, yeah, we're all unique, everyone's got their own thumbprint. But when we understand from this perspective, we can get a better grip on what those differences mean and what they are. So this is the MIMN framework. And in the process, I did a lot of research. I empaneled psychologists, people who've helped me do quite a considerable amount of work in creating tools such as a psychometric test that will enable us to measure these abilities, how strong they are, and also represent them graphically to make it easier for us to understand where we're strong, where we're not as strong, and how to deal with that. And one of the tools, this is just a quick example, but we can look at over 1,000 different careers, different tasks or activities, even hobbies, and see how those match up with an individual's nature. So for instance, this is just an example of a person, Christian Dupont, and wants to look at the career of a freelance writer to see if it matches. And we can see there's a high degree of overlap that Christian's qualities and the qualities required by a freelance writer match up pretty well, but we do see some differences here. This shows that a freelance writer needs to have a stronger amount of entrepreneurial nature, which is going to cause Christiane to have to stretch or to push herself a lot. This will be a cause of stress here. We can also see that Christiane has a strong healing nature, but the job of a freelance writer doesn't really speak to that. So this is what I call unused potential. And then there are different tools and techniques of how we can get, it's not to say that this, because it's not a perfect fit, that it's not viable. No job is going to be a perfect fit, but what we do as MN practitioners is help them see where the differences are and then give them strategies to deal with them. And that's where your role as a practitioner comes in. And it becomes powerful when you can line up all of these things together. Okay, so how can you use MN in your practice? Lots of ways. Career suitability. So to find out if the job that they're in is really right for them. Sometimes people want to quit a job and they shouldn't because it's something else that's bothering them, but they attribute the other problem to the pain that they're in at present. Or if somebody wants to change jobs, transition. If it's a student who's planning in the future, they've got no experience, we can predict with a high degree of accuracy whether that job is going to work out or not. And I'll show you some examples of this shortly. Sometimes people will come to you and say, I want to start my own company, or I want to become a freelancer. Is it really viable or not? We're going to find out. Stress reduction, work-life balance, engaging unused potential, in teams with companies, aligning team members. So this is where I say it comes back to that Swiss Army knife. It's so simple, but it's got dozens and dozens and dozens of applications that you'll be able to use it for. And I'm going to show you just a couple of these with some examples. So here's some examples of people who came to me out of alignment, sometimes in tears, and wanting to get things right. And I'll show you how we did it. So the first is Mitali. She's from India, and she had a question to be or not to be a doctor. Both Mitali's parents are doctors, and there was a lot of pressure on her also to become a doctor. And you've probably seen this in your practice before. The child doesn't know whether it's the right decision or not because they want to feel their independence, and they don't want to feel that they chose that job or that particular career just because the parents told them. And so we did the MN test with Mitali, and we saw immediately that her healing nature was off the charts. It's very, very high. That would incline her. If she wanted to become a doctor and went into this area, it means that she would enjoy it. She would be aligned with her work. But we also found something interesting. Her administrative nature was also really strong. And so what I said to her is that in case you don't want to work directly with patients, you also have the ability to work in, let's say, hospital administration or clinic management. And that made a lot of sense to her. When she saw the data like this, she could make that decision to put all of her weight into her medical studies. And the outcome is that she was awarded the best medical graduate of the year. This is more than 50,000 students in India every year graduate. She was #1, and this is her getting the award from the President of India. Now, I'm not saying Multiple Natures is responsible for that award. Her hard work is. But what MN did was it gave her the confidence to say, you know what, this is really who I am. And if I'm doing this, it's because it's who I am, not just because my parents are telling me. And with that confidence, she moved forward. Story of Raphael, who's from south of France in Montpellier. Raphael's family had a wine business or wine industry, and they wanted Raphael very much to take over. Now, he had done work in that area for a number of years, but he wasn't sure that he wanted to continue because something was sort of eating away from him, at him from the inside. And he wanted to find out what that was. And so we did his test, and we found out that indeed his entrepreneurial was strong, which would make him a shoo-in to manage the company. And his administrative nature was also quite strong. Again, that would support that claim. But what we found was that his adventurous nature was also super strong. And that's probably why he wasn't, his tigers, as I say, hungry tigers, his tigers weren't being fed from that work alone. And so we had some discussions, and within a year, Raphael decided to open up his own travel company where he's doing destination trips to Morocco, to India, safaris and whatnot. So there you go. And he totally looks the part if you see him. He's way deep into it. The last I'll show you is Gabriel, who's from Paris, who was a struggling artist. And this is him in his atelier. You can see maybe not so cheerful there. But what we found out with him is that his creative nature, again, off the charts, he's right to be doing something creative, artistic. His entertaining nature may be a little bit underserved as an artist. And even more interesting is this educative component. He is a natural teacher, he's a natural educator, but that wasn't coming out at all. 2 months later, I get a mail from him that says, I found the perfect job. I'm now a full-time drama teacher in Paris. I work in schools to teach kids who they are. It's part of a creative program where they get kids to do self-discovery. So I can say, you helped me find who I am, and now I'm trying to give back what I received with kids. So there you go. Okay, I've shown you 3, but as Steve Jobs will also often say, but there's just one more thing. And I'll tell you this incredible story about Simar Soki from Patiala. He's a guy whose parents wanted him to become an accountant, and they were pushing him very hard in that direction. He took the test, and it suggested he become a dancer. And he got his parents to see the results, and they agreed to it. And he says that now I can say I'm living my dream. I'm now the world's second best Sikh Bharatanatyam dancer. It's a type of classical dance. And if everything goes well, I'll soon be the world's first. And here you are. I think the world has lost one very mediocre accountant, thank God. And Simar Soki continues to tear up the stage in India. So these are just a number of examples of the proof is in the pudding and how it really works. If you try it, if you see it, you'll get these kind of results. We've got more than 55 practitioners around the world right now who are using it and coming back with very similar results. And I know that if you also were to use this Swiss Army knife of sorts, that you would find the same thing. Okay, the MN offering. So if you would like to make use of multiple natures with your clients, it consists of a psychometric test. You've seen a little bit of it, at least some of the output, but there's a lot more to show you. There are customizable reports. You can make reports that are 30 pages long with all sorts of details for the clients that are very powerful and helpful for them to understand themselves better and make their decisions. There's a dashboard for you to manage your clients, tests, and so on. There's a knowledge base in case you would like to get additional information. You're always welcome to access our community of practitioners and get support from myself and our team members as well. Okay, so if you would like to join the certification program, these are some of the highlights. You will begin with a personal consultation with me. I will be sure that you are aligned first, because as they say when you're on the plane, you know, oxygen masks deploy, put on yours first before helping others. So we need to make sure really that you're fully in alignment before using the tool with others. There's a 6-week online course. The materials are available to you during the week. And then each week we have an hour-and-a-half session via Zoom, limited to 8 people so we can get really quality time with each person who's in the program. You can access the content at your pace. You will have access to a dashboard where you can manage the reports and tests for clients. I will show you how to do that. We'll train you. It's really quite easy. You'll learn how to create additional revenue streams with MN. I know that coaches are always hustling, and it's important to ensure that if you're going to be using a new tool, that it's just not adding an expense to your circumstance, but it's actually going to generate revenue. And so we've worked that into our training. So I will work with you to help you to do that. And last, post-program support. So when you're done, I will follow up with you to ensure that you are ready and capable to use MN successfully. Okay, the program investment, it's $2,225 for the entire program. That also includes the one-on-one counseling with me, as well as 10 free tests for you to use with your clients. so the course pays for itself. You would use those tests as part of your package, and we'll show you how to price it. But the idea is that, yes, you're making an investment, but within 2 to 3 months of your graduation, you should be able to make that amount back without any problem. And I see that consistently with the people that I'm working with. Okay, and of course, you would like to know what the special offer is. I'm sure you're waiting for that. So there's a 30% discount for the first 8 people who register. As I mentioned, Christine is the first MN practitioner, and we're now, for our first time, opening it up to the US market. And we would like to invite the first 8 people to avail this opportunity. So if you're interested to know more about the program, the offer, more about the test, anything that you've seen, you can email me and I'll get on a personal call with you to walk you through and to give you more information so you can make an informed decision. And maybe at this time, Christine, if I can ask you to pop in for a second. Are you there? Oh, there you are.
Hi.
So, Christine, could you maybe just share a little bit about your kind of experience with the program, the investment, and also what happened after?
Sure, sure. Well, I'll say first that when I first met Steven and heard about multiple natures, I was really compelled by its focus on finding flow for the individual. I had been using DISC in my coaching practice, and I love DISC. It's more a behavioral style or a communication assessment. I'm familiar with Myers-Briggs, and I know there's some other things out there, but the alignment piece with this was so compelling for me, and specifically that it can recommend specific careers, tasks, and hobbies for the individual. To me, that was a really tangible tool, not only for myself in my work with my clients, but for the client themselves. There's something really affirming about seeing it in print, like seeing it in the results. So when I finished my certification, which I loved, it was interactive, it was online. I really enjoyed meeting the other practitioners and learning the science behind this assessment. And it came time for me to take it out into the wild. And I trialed it on a few people before I brought it to my community. And I announced it in my email to my community, which is about, I don't know, 600 people on my email list, I guess. Within 5 days, I had gathered all the slots that I had opened up. I'd opened up 10 slots for the assessment. So in just a week, I had already recouped my investment in the certification program. And the participants of the assessment, there have been some really amazing, powerful ahas, personal ahas. Some of them were confirming where they were thinking they were going to head, but others were brought off the shelf this long-standing desire to do something that they had been pushing aside a big part of their lives. And so when it was shown to them right here, it was just their whole body and mind and spirit just chilled out. And they were all about making their way towards that, kind of taking that off the shelf and making that their priority now. So it was just an amazing experience, not only from the front end of having such interest in this tool, but also the back end of people having the assessment and really seeing it and sensing for themselves where alignment could be best found in their lives and their work.
Super. Thank you. Thanks for
You're
sharing.
awesome. Sure.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so with that, I extend a hearty invitation to each of you, to you who are watching this, to join our family of practitioners, our global community. This photo is last year's. We have an annual conference, international conference, where we get together and meet and share experiences and whatnot. And this was in the Pyrenees in south of France. And so we'll find our next interesting location. And perhaps if you've graduated by then, you could join us there. And I think when you do connect with others and see that they're also getting the same kind of success that Christine is also expressing, that you would also be able to find the same for yourself and for the people who you service. And with that, that brings me to the end. I thank you for your attention, for um, for joining us, for watching. And again, if you have any questions, please do email me, Steven@multiplenatures.com, and I would be super happy to answer any questions and help you decide if it's right for you and how it could help you. Okay.
So Donna says, thank you, very interesting, in the chat.
Great. If there are any questions, we have a minute or so. Okay. All right, well, if there are no questions, then Christine, if there, which questions do people tend to ask you when they, you know, if they I mean coaches here, not necessarily.
Yeah. Well, the first question is often, how does this compare to other assessments? Because there's quite a bit out there available.
Yeah, I think it's a good question. I think it's also important to recognize that any type of tests or assessments, they tend to, you know, things evolve over time, right? If we went back 50 years, 100 years, what did we have with respect to, say, an X-ray machine? They were very primitive. Now, if you take a look at what we have today, you have functional MRIs, which give you the ability to watch the brain or the heart working in real time. And so I think what's important is to understand that there are lots of instruments that exist, and they work. They're all valid, but they tell you different things. And as any medical practitioner would do, you have to decide, you know, there's so many tests that you could run on somebody, but you're not going to run all of them because there's no time. It's too much information. It's too expensive. So the important thing really becomes, as you were also expressing before, minimizing the number of tools that are actually absolutely necessary. And what I find here is that the particular qualities that we identify with intelligences on one side and natures on the other side give us this ideal balance to give us a very clear, quick, clear picture of what a person's nature is, who they are, and how it aligns to what they do. Other tools might get you there, but they might only give you a partial picture, or you might have to intuit and make additional steps in the process in order to get there. So in that sense, I would say, I'm not saying other tests are wrong and this one is right. What I'm saying is this tells you a lot of information in a very short amount of time that's widely applicable to lots of, it's the Swiss Army knife, essentially. So that's how it differs, you know.
Yes. And what's significant to me about the first story you told about the medical student is that, you know, I think back to my life and I look back and I'm like, wow, that was a really spirally path I've taken here. And in the case of that medical student, she was able to see her inclination early and get on, we might say the right path, but an aligned path earlier than some of us perhaps did. And with the work in my clients who are entrepreneurs and career people, that they're kind of in the same place. They're realizing their lives and their work aren't fitting them anymore. So where do you start when you're 40 years in, you know, in the case of most of my clients? So this component of both the natures and the intelligences have been there all along.
Right.
Right. And it's just that, oh, now I'm seeing it. And now I can almost make more sense of what my spirally path had been. Yet I can also get more directionally correct moving forward.
Yep.
All right. We have a comment from Marty. So Marty says, I'm one of Christine's clients who took the assessment and worked with her. And because of this, I've realigned myself to what I believe has been my right path and that I was too afraid to embrace. I'm happier today than I've been in a long time regarding my work.
Marty, that is music to my ears. Wow.
Thank you, Marty, for sharing.
Thank you for sharing. And Christine, thank you for being the conduit to share that with Marty. Wow. I mean, I live for that. And I totally understand, Marty, what you're expressing. A lot of people, you know, we heard this before, that they're afraid to do what they know is right. They're afraid to actually take that step. And I like to look at it as just this, as you saw with those pieces. Instead of forcing yourself to be something, you know, I don't know, it was Da Vinci or somebody, they said, you know, how do you make such a beautiful sculpture? And he said, it's easy. I just take away what's not supposed, what shouldn't be there, right? And I'm not making the sculpture, I'm just taking the other stuff away. Think about it the same way with yourself. You're already there, your nature is there, but there's all these other distractions, programs in our brains that are making us think that we're something we're not. And MN kind of helps in the process to, chip away those things. So, yeah.
And Marty says that he loves that analogy.
Just put those pieces in place, and then the sun will just come shining out.
Thanks, Marty.
Marty, thanks so much for that. Christine, also thank you. And I think our time is up. We said 30 minutes, and we're at 35, but I think it's probably a good place for us to stop. There's a lot more to talk about, a lot more to share, a lot more to discuss. So this is just the opening. It's an invitation to taste the pudding. They said the proof's in the pudding. I hope this invitation has been enticing enough for you at least to contact me and to have some further discussions, and I would find a great pleasure in that. And let me finally say, Christine, thank you so much for all your assistance in helping get this together. She's done a lot of work with me on the back end to get to this point today over the last year and a half, I would say. So thank you for
Oh, it's been my pleasure, and you're welcome. And it actually just occurred to me, I'm not sure we mentioned when the certification was going to happen here in the States. So we'd say a date?
Yeah, so the next date for certification is going to be the 22nd of May. That's when the program will formally start. So it will be a 6-week program that will begin then. So
great.
But I just say, don't worry, get in touch with me if you're interested. And
reach out to Steven.
And I'm here, and I'm just waiting to shine. So
wonderful. I don't see any other questions in the chat.
All right. With that, then I'll say thank you to those of you who attended, and if you're catching this after the live post, thank you for taking the time to watch it. And again, do get in touch. I'd love to hear from you. Christine, thanks. Attendees also. Thanks.
You're welcome. Bye, everybody.